Welcome everyone to this Storage Day session. Really excited to be here and share with you a deep dive on AWS's newest storage service that we launched just earlier today, Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. By ways of introduction, my name is Andy Krudge, and I lead the product team for the new service. So over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be giving you a quick introduction to the service, going into a deep dive of some of the key features and capabilities. And lastly, I'm going to talk through some of the migration and hybrid capabilities that are built into and supported with the service. So in terms of introduction, so Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP is a service within Amazon FSx. And Amazon FSx, it's a family of services that we launched about 2.5 to 3 years ago. And it allows customers to launch, run, and scale feature-rich and highly performant file systems with just a few clicks on AWS. And if you tuned in with us earlier today, we heard a little bit about what led us to launch Amazon FSx 2.5 to 3 years ago. And really what we've heard consistently from customers is there are a lot of file system technologies out there. A lot of the data that's out there and a lot of the applications that are out there rely on shared network-attached file storage. And with Amazon FSx, what we're doing from a service perspective is making it easy for customers who are looking to migrate to AWS. They're looking to get the agility or the scalability or the flexibility benefits of running their applications in the cloud. We want to give them a path to migrate to the cloud while keeping the exact same storage technologies and not having customers need to reinvent how they manage their data as part of migrating to the cloud. And so what Amazon FSx offers is fully managed file storage that offers full access to some of the key features, capabilities, performance profiles of popular file systems. It's also built on the latest AWS compute, disk, and networking technologies to give customers ever-increasing performance capabilities and features. Another thing we often hear from customers is as part of moving to AWS, they're really excited to be able to do more with their data. And so a big part of what we offer with Amazon FSx is a deep integration with a number of other AWS services that make it easy to process data, run machine learning against data, and protect data. So when we launched Amazon FSx 2.5, 3 years ago, we launched with two services, Amazon FSx for Windows File Server, a Windows native file system, and Amazon FSx for Lustre, which is a high-performance compute-optimized file system. And just earlier today, we launched a third, the newest Amazon FSx file system type, Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. And so, what is the service? So the service is based on NetApp's ONTAP storage software. It's a widely used and popular storage software that a lot of customers use today to manage their data, and they trust NetApp ONTAP to run some of their most mission-critical applications. ONTAP has a really widely used set of features, capabilities, and offers high performance for workloads like databases that really need high performance and low latencies. And so with Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP, what we're doing is providing complete NetApp ONTAP file systems with the features, with the capabilities, with the performance profiles customers would expect from a native ONTAP file system, with all of the simplicity, agility, and scalability benefits of a fully managed AWS service. And so for customers who are, we talk to a lot of customers who maybe are running their applications today on premises and are really eager and excited to bring them to AWS. And so for a lot of these customers, this service allows them now to run their applications and bring their applications to AWS without needing to reinvent or change how they store or manage their data. Customers don't have to give up the features, the rich capabilities that ONTAP provides if they want to move to AWS. It also, we offer, as an example, an elastic capacity tier, which means that customers don't need to provision and plan storage and hardware with Amazon FSx. They can have their business needs continuously evolve, grow storage without worrying about provisioning some of their colder data sets. And lastly, customers are looking to continuously do more with their data and get more value from their data. And so by being a native AWS service and integrating with many other AWS services, we make it easy for customers to get more value and do a lot more with their data than they previously could. We also talk to a lot of customers who are building new applications today. These are born in the cloud workloads, born in the cloud applications, and ONTAP has a wide range of features and capabilities that are really helpful for customers who are looking to build and test and deploy net new applications. Features that let you clone a data set, copy a data set, replicate data sets with just a single click. And so one of the exciting things about the service is ONTAP is a very powerful file system technology. Traditionally, it's been deployed on premises and data centers, but a big part of what we're doing as part of the service is making it easy for any customer to take advantage of ONTAP's extensive features and capabilities without necessarily needing to learn how to manage ONTAP. So that said, I'm going to go into a deep dive of some of the key features and functionalities of the service. There are 6 areas I want to cover today. First is management, just how do you get started, how do you use the product. Accessibility, how do you access your data. Some of the availability, durability, and data protection characteristics of the product. I'm going to talk about performance and scalability, cost effectiveness, and security. So with that said, I'm going to start with management. As an AWS service, customers can manage and they can manage their data, they can create their file systems using, of course, the AWS console, the CLI, the API. As a native service, that's what customers would expect. And this allows customers who are deploying their infrastructure in AWS to manage their storage in the same way they manage all of their other resources. In addition, customers who are used to managing ONTAP using NetApp's native capabilities will also be able to continue doing so with this service. So as an example, customers can use NetApp Cloud Manager to manage both their on-premises NetApp systems as well as Amazon FSx. And we also, with the product, expose and make available to customers the ONTAP CLI and API. ONTAP has a rich set of APIs and capabilities that a lot of customers have built scripts and applications and tools around that make it easy to manage storage. And customers who've built those don't need to rewrite them and don't need to kind of replace them as part of moving to the product if they don't want to. So going into the architecture of the service, there are 3 key resources that Amazon FSx has with Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. And if you're an existing NetApp user, these will be very familiar for you. If you're not a NetApp user today, that's perfectly fine. The Amazon FSx API and console makes it really easy to get started and create these resources. The first one is a file system. A file system defines the infrastructure, the capacity for your data, and it also kind of defines the ONTAP software that's hosting your data. In NetApp terms, a file system is like an ONTAP cluster. Again, it comprises, it's where your data lives physically. Within a file system, you can create one or multiple storage VMs or SVMs. And what these are virtual file servers that serve data over your network. So you kind of create your file system, which is a physical space where you can manage your data, store your data. And then within that, you can create these virtual file servers. And those virtual file servers are the servers you access if you're trying to mount FSx over NFS or SMB or different file-based protocols. And you can create one SVM per file system, which is probably the most common deployment. But a lot of NetApp customers we talk to actually have multiple SVMs per file system, and that will be supported as well. Lastly, you can create one or multiple volumes, which are data containers in which your data is stored. And so within each file system, you create multiple SVMs. Within each SVM, you can create multiple volumes. And by default, the Amazon FSx console actually makes it easy to get started with these, and will automatically, if you go to it, create a file system that has an SVM that has a volume for you, so you can quickly and easily get started. In terms of accessibility, so file systems are accessible over the industry standard NFS, SMB, and iSCSI protocols. So you can access your data both using file-based protocols as well as iSCSI, which is a block-based protocol. File systems are created within a VPC, and you can access your file systems from AWS services that are running within that VPC, whether they're running Linux or Windows or Mac OS. Because we support a wide range of industry standard protocols, you can access your data from virtually any OS. You can also access your data from a peered VPC using AWS Transit Gateway. And if you have on-premises compute instances and workstations, you can also access FSx using AWS Direct Connect and VPN. So what I'm going to do now is show you a quick demo of what it looks like to create an Amazon FSx file system using the console, and what it looks like to access an Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP file system using both the Linux and Windows client. So this is the Amazon FSx console. Here you can go, you can see different file systems we offer, and I'm going to click on Create File System. I'm going to choose FSx for NetApp ONTAP. And here in the console, we have two options. We have a Quick Create option and a Standard Create option. Quick Create kind of creates a default file system, SVM volume for you. Standard Create lets you configure a bit more properties. You can give your file system a name. So in this case, I'll give it a name, FSx ONTAP demo. You can specify an amount of SSD storage capacity. And you provide a VPC in which your file system is created. And lastly, you can choose to optionally enable or disable storage efficiency, like compression. As you can see here, here's a preview of what's going to be created. And as you can see, there's a default SVM called FSx and a default volume called vol1 that's automatically created when you go to create a file system. Again, we want to make it easy for customers to just get started with a simple configuration. So you see now my file system is creating. Typically takes about 25 minutes or so to create a file system. So for the rest of the demo, I'm going to use an existing file system that was already pre-created. So as you can see, I went to this existing file system, and I can go to the SVMs. As you can see, I have a single SVM here, and it's actually joined to an Active Directory, which I'll talk about a bit later. I also have a volume called vol1, which is the volume I'll be accessing later. Each file system has an administrative endpoint you can use to use the ONTAP CLI and REST API. And you can also get the NFS endpoints here as well. I'm going to show you now what it looks like to actually use the ONTAP CLI with FSx. So you can actually SSH in to an FSx file system and use the rich ONTAP CLI and REST API set to manage your data. So just like we saw in the console, I had a single SVM, I had a volume named vol1. Here I'm using native NetApp commands to see the same exact thing. Here you can use a native NetApp command to see what IP addresses to use to access your data. And again, this data is accessible also in the Amazon FSx console and Amazon FSx API as well. So what I'm going to do now is, this is a Linux client that's running right now in the same VPC as my file system. And I mounted, using the NFS protocol, my file system, my volume, from that Linux client, as you can see here in these commands. And when you mount an NFS, when you mount your file system over NFS, your data appears like it's a local folder or directory on your client. And so for the sake of this demo, I'm going to create a simple file. Just wrote some text to a file. I'm going to print it out, and you're going to see the contents of that text file. Again, this is a Linux client that's mapping my file system over the NFS protocol that just created a file. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to mount that same data set using the SMB protocol from a Windows client. So this is a completely different operating system. I'm going to map a network drive that's associated with this FSx file system from Windows. And as you can see, that file is also accessible from a Windows client simultaneously and contains the same exact data. Purpose of this is just to highlight how simple and flexible and easy it is to access the data on your file system, again, from virtually any operating system. And the same thing would work with the macOS client as well. So now I want to talk a bit about, I talked about Amazon FSx being fully managed and highly resilient, and this is something that customers look for with storage services. Wanted to give you a picture of what that looks like. And so if you look on the bottom of this diagram, the bottom depicts what an Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP file system looks like. Each file system is highly available and durable across multiple AWS availability zones. There's a file server in 2 different AZs, and each file server has its own redundant copy of all of your data. And what this means is, for example, let's say there's a failure of an individual file server, or the failure or unavailability of a single availability zone. So in this case, you can see all of my clients are accessing the file server on the left side in availability zone 1. If there were a failure with this file system, Amazon FSx automatically fails over to the other AZ, and your clients automatically fail over with it. Without any disruption to your clients, without I/O errors, your clients can continue running and accessing data the same way they were before. I mentioned Amazon FSx is a managed service. So what this means is we're continuously monitoring for hardware failures, for issues, and replacing hardware components if needed. And so in this case, within minutes, we'll replace that original file server, and clients will automatically fail back. Again, this is done automatically by Amazon FSx. As a customer, you don't have to worry about managing failover, managing availability of the hardware. Similarly, if there's an individual disk failure, we will automatically replace that drive. Your data stays available. So in terms of durability, one of the features I'm really excited for us to be supporting with the product is Snapshots. What a snapshot is it's a point-in-time view of the data in a particular volume. So for example, let's say I take a snapshot at noon, and then an hour later I go and I modify a file. I can actually right-click on that file in a Windows client, click on the previous versions tab, as you can see in the screenshot here, and see the previous versions of this file, including the version that existed at noon. This is a really powerful feature that makes it easy for users to self-service restoring files in the event that they accidentally deleted a file or accidentally overwrote a file without them having to reach out to administrators. And this is supported with the service today. We also offer a number of backup and disaster recovery features built into the product. And again, this is above and beyond the fact that each file system is highly available and durable across multiple AZs. So the first feature we support, we have a native backups capability built into the product, where by default, each volume that you create actually gets an automatic backup that's taken by Amazon FSx each day. And you can optionally select the retention period for that backup. You can take additional backups at any time. All of these backups are crash consistent, meaning they represent a specific point in time of your volume, and they're also incremental, which means if you take 2 backups, the second backup only consumes storage capacity for any data that had changed since the first one. We also support cross-region replication, something we see a lot of customers doing for added availability or durability. The service supports NetApp's SnapMirror and SnapVault, which are 2 replication technologies that make it easy to replicate data between 2 ONTAP systems. And so with SnapMirror, customers can easily now create 2 FSx file systems in 2 different regions and set up automatic replication from one to the other, so that you can have highly available and highly durable storage, not just across AZs within a single region, but also across multiple regions. So on the performance side, each file system, you can drive up to multiple gigabytes per second of throughput per file system, and up to hundreds of thousands of IOPS. All of this with consistent sub-millisecond latencies for read and write operations. We support a number of different features that are part of the SMB and NFS protocols that allow even just a single client to drive the full performance of a file system by establishing multiple TCP connections behind the scenes and being able to drive even higher levels of bandwidth because of that parallelism. And one of the great things is when you create a file system, you can specify an SSD storage capacity. You also can specify a throughput capacity, and you can specify those independently, which means that you can provision just the right amount of storage and just the right amount of performance without having to over-provision on either dimension. One of the features I'm really excited about with this product, we hear from a lot of customers that they're using similar capabilities elsewhere, is we have an automatic tiering capability built into the service. So as you saw, when I created that demo file system, it had a terabyte of SSD storage capacity. This is high performance storage, really meant for the active portion of your data set, provides really low latencies. In addition, we have a capacity pool tier that's built into the service that is an elastic tier, meaning you don't have to provision the space there. It automatically grows, it automatically shrinks based on the data you tier to it. And it can scale to petabytes in size. So you can have petabytes worth of data in this capacity pool tier in a single file system. And the capacity pool tier is really cost optimized for less frequently accessed or colder data. Typical workloads that we see, customers will have about 20% of their data set being actively accessed, and the remaining 80% of the data set is a little bit colder and less actively accessed. So one of the great things about this service that we hear from customers they're very excited about is we have built into the product automatic tiering capabilities that automatically and intelligently tier data between SSD storage and capacity pool storage based on access patterns. And NetApp has been building storage technologies for almost 30 years, and even just in the past 10 years, they've been offering in the on-premises world tiering between SSD storage and HDD storage. So as part of this, as part of Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP, customers get to benefit from all of the logic and intelligence and capabilities that you would get with an ONTAP system, so that ONTAP will automatically and intelligently tier your data between these two tiers, proactively, reactively, as well as proactively, based on your specific workload's access patterns. One of the great things about this capability is what it means is that you can store large amounts of data and get effectively SSD-level performance for your workload while only storing a fraction of your data set on SSD storage itself. And this is again, in talking to customers, this is a really exciting feature that really allows customers to cost optimize their workloads and get the most value as possible for their storage, depending on their workload's characteristics. So I want to walk through an example of what does this mean from a cost perspective. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an example of 100 terabytes of data. And I'm going to assume, again, 20% of data is typically hot, 80% of data is typically cold. Another set of features we're going to be supporting, we support with the product, are compression and deduplication. And you saw this when I created the demo file system. So assuming typical savings from compression and deduplication, what does this look like from a cost perspective? So I'm going to start with 100 terabytes of logical data. And again, 80% of data is cold, 20% of data is hot typically. And here we have the price points for SSD storage and capacity pool storage in our US regions. If you then apply deduplication and compression to that data, you see that you only need a fraction of the storage capacity to actually store your logical data. If you have, even though you have 20 terabytes of data that needs to be on SSD, it can compress to only require 7 terabytes of usable capacity. And putting this all together and summing this all up, the TCO of this example is about 4.2 cents per gigabyte per month. And again, this is for storage that effectively has the performance characteristics of SSD storage. And this is multi-AZ storage, which means it's replicated synchronously across multiple AZs to provide high availability and high durability. So some of the security capabilities of the product. So all of your data is encrypted at rest. You can provide an AWS key management service key. And we also support encryption in transit. We integrate with AWS VPC and IAM, so you can control access to your data and control access to who can manage your data. And Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP supports a broad range of compliance and certifications. We also optionally allow you to join your storage virtual machines, your SVMs, to an Active Directory. And what this allows you to do is for your users to use their AD credentials to actually manage to authenticate to their file system. There are 2 ONTAP features that I'm really excited to support with the product. One is fPolicy, which allows you to use third-party auditing applications to actually audit access to the files in your file system. And the other one is vScan. You can actually configure automatic, on-demand antivirus scanning with your file system. It's built into the product and something we support today. And you can monitor all API calls using AWS CloudTrail as well as ONTAP native logging. So lastly, what I wanted to cover really quickly were some of the migration and hybrid capabilities. So as I mentioned earlier, we fully support a technology called NetApp SnapMirror with this product, which allows you to replicate data between 2 ONTAP systems. And while the example before showcased replication within AWS, you could also use SnapMirror to migrate data from an on-premises ONTAP file system into Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. It's built into ONTAP. It's a really quick, efficient replication technology that makes it easy to move data. And if you're looking to migrate from a solution that is not based on ONTAP, you can use any standard migration tool like Robocopy, rsync, even Snowball. We had a migration session about an hour ago. So there are 2 hybrid use cases wanted to talk through that Amazon FSx supports. I mentioned earlier that you can access file systems from on-premises. So you can have Amazon FSx running in AWS and on-premises clients running on-premises. And this works great, and we have a lot of customers who do this today. And one of the things we support with the product is you can actually configure an on-premises cache with Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. You can either use NetApp Global File Cache or NetApp Flex Cache as this cache device. And what this allows you to do is get even better performance and even lower latencies from your on-premises clients if they access data that's in the cloud. The other thing we support is actually the same, but in reverse. A lot of customers, especially in the electronic design and automation space or media and entertainment, burst their data to the cloud. They may have data they generate on premises, and they want to process it in AWS compute resources. And so customers can do this today. One thing we're excited to be supporting with the product is you can actually configure an Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP file system as a cache for an on-premises ONTAP deployment. And what this allows customers to do is to get even better performance when they're processing data from in-cloud compute resources, because you're just getting lower latency access because you have a cache in the cloud. Lastly, as I mentioned, we launched the service just earlier today, just a few hours back. But we do have a number of resources you're welcome to go to that share some details about the product, FAQs, documentation. One call out I want to make is we actually are going to be running a webinar later this month. And so there's a link at the bottom of the slide if you're interested. And so that's going to be one place where you can go to learn more information about the product. So with that, thank you.